This video is brought to you by Patreon provider Drew.
Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. If you don't know what this box is, you're obviously not fans of my channel, because this is perhaps the cheapest, shittiest box you'll ever find from any sort of high-quality optics manufacturer. It is, of course, from SWFA. Patreon provider Andrew was nice enough to send me this 6X fixed classic direct from SWFA a couple weeks ago. I'll be honest, I've had a lot going on, so it's been a while since I've had the opportunity to even look at this. Anyway, do you know what this represents? This represents the final fixed-powered SWFA from their Classic series. That's right, I've reviewed every single other option that they have. Both of their 10s, their 12, their 16, and of course their 20. I still own two of their 10Xs and their 16, though I sold the 12 and the 20 quite some time ago. Reason for that was, I just didn't really have a need for it. And you might be asking yourself, what purpose, what need would someone have for a fixed 6X like this? Well, maybe he wants to run this with an offset red dot and have a red dot and a fixed 6X. That's like an LPVL, right? You have a 1 and a 6. You do have some very nice turrets, which are classic SWFA perfect. You do have a very nice parallax adjustment at the rear. Goes down to 10 meters. This one being a 6X seems a lot shorter throw than any of their other ones. But the general feel, fit, and finish of these are excellent for the money. These are around $300 brand new, even though if and when you are around the Black Friday sale, you can get these for like around $250, $260 with a whole bunch of stuff. You're talking about rings, bubble levels, sometimes caps. There's a whole lot that they throw in for their Black Friday deals. Now you might be asking yourself, why the hell would I buy this for $300 when I could buy so many other options? I mean, you can buy an Arkin SH4 Gen 2 4-16 for under $300 right now. And that's friggin' ridiculous how cheap you can get that optic for. But this is made in Japan. On top of it, it's also very lightweight. Sub 21 ounces for a fixed 6X might not seem like a lot, but keep in mind, this is a 30mm tube with a 42mm front objective. So this thing should let in a massive amount of light. In fact, from my experiences with all the other fixed power SWFAs that I've had and reviewed, they actually let in too much light. You can see, however, that going from this new 6X to my old side focus 10X, you can see the anodizing is a little bit different. I don't know if it's something that they just changed along the way, or maybe since COVID they've had problems trying to outsource this to get the old anodizing. It's really hard to say, but I can also pull off my 16X, and you can see my 16 and my 10 are basically identical. The new one is definitely a little bit shinier, so if you want it to be a little bit more matte, I don't know if it's just a 6X thing or just a new SWFA thing. As far as longevity, I haven't had any issues. This is the one that got destroyed almost with that PRI gator mount. Really smacked the crap out of the tube, but this thing still works fine. They're rated for 50 calibers, so unless you're literally using this on a giant cannon, I wouldn't see this thing breaking anytime soon. And even if it does, they give you a full lifetime warranty. However, since COVID, they've been a little backed up, so it might not be as fast of a return as, let's say, a Vortex product. So, with all that being said, let's get behind this thing and see how well this thing performs.
The mil quad reticle is extremely simple. The only thing you really need to know about this is it's in mils, and the 3-6-9 posts that you typically see are replaced with the 9-12-3, which honestly, I kind of prefer a little bit more. This way, if you did have to hold for an extremely long distance, you could at least have a very fine line to line up with this as opposed to a very thick one. Some people don't really care for it, but for others, it's perfectly fine. This reticle is simple, but so is the scope, so it works. The turrets on these things are good, but they could use a little bit of improvement. One thing that I don't particularly care for is only the 5 mils per rev. I really do prefer 10, especially if you're doing a lot of dialing, because you can get lost even though there is a rev indicator underneath it. The sound is good, the feel is good, but there is a little bit of mush to it. All in all, it's perfectly adequate for this price scope.
As you can see, we're lined up fairly well. It looks like the elevation might be a little bit short, but that is fine for right now, because if it's within 1%, I'm happy. Box test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's it. That is beautiful. Returns to 0 flawlessly, and let's continue up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for 10 full mils. That looks gorgeous. 10 full mils back up, beautiful. Let's give it another quick twist. 2 full turns on the 5 mil turrets. That's 10. Wrist is starting to hurt, and that is 0. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous as always, SWFA.
An absolute perfect performance on this tracking test. One of the best I've seen in a very long time, and honestly I wasn't expecting much different. These SWFA scopes are built to a very high quality, especially for the price point. Keep in mind, all of these are made in Japan, and for the standard $300 that they go for, boy howdy do they perform. You might be wondering why this and not a variable. Well, there's a lot of reasons for it, which I'll eventually get to by the end of the video, but let's take a close look at the performance of the image here at 30 yards. Honestly, get the side focus dialed in just right, and you have a basic, again, perfect image. But if you want to compare it against something, let's compare it perhaps with an LPVO. This is the Gen 2 StrikeEagle second focal plane 1:6 at 6x. Why am I comparing a target turreted potential tactical scope against a second focal plane capped turret BDC 1:6 LPVO? Simple. What happens if you want to run this SWFA with an offset red dot? That's an option, right? It's technically a 1 and a 6. So here you go. Here's a 1 and a 6. The Gen 2 1:6 second focal plane StrikeEagle is much better than its Gen 1 brother. But here, despite that, the SWFA absolutely pulls ahead as far as image sharpness, clarity, brightness, colors, view through, and even scope body. The SWFA is better in basically every regard with the exception of illumination because it doesn't have any. Not to mention, getting behind the SWFA is a little bit easier than it is with the StrikeEagle, so you have the added benefit of a little bit better eye relief, a little bit forgiving eyebox, and just a much, much better view. Also, the build quality is much better. Moving our attention back to solely the SWFA, what can we really take from this image? Well, the fact that it's got it's a rear focus, not a side focus, but the fact that it's got a rear focus, especially a rear focus that goes down to 10 meters, means that you can use this from very close range out to extended ranges like you see here. This is 400 yards, and a 6x on medium-sized targets, whether it be plates and or other such things like animals, is honestly more than sufficient. Is this for everybody? No, absolutely not. What happens if you want more magnification, or you have bad eyes, or you're a little bit older, or you're using it for something other than practical shooting? Then no, it's probably not. But if you want to use this to maybe push yourselves on a rimfire rifle at longer distances with less magnification, while not sacrificing quality components such as glass and or your erectors to have really good tracking performances, so this way you could have good solid repeatability with your tracking, this is a good option. And at 400 yards, we have a very beautiful image. But let's say we push the distance back a little bit farther, in fact, to 800 yards. We don't even need to really adjust the rear focus on this thing to have that power tower come to perfect sharpness. And not only that, those power lines at 30 yards, they already look pretty sharp to me. So we don't even really need to make an adjustment to get a good view on those. So the versatility potential on this thing is already very high. Another attribute fixed-powered magnified optics are known for is light transmission, because there's usually less going on, and thus the light coming through the optic will also exit the optic at a much higher transmission rate. So going from unmagnified here to then magnified, it's a little hard to tell, but the image looking through this thing is very bright. Now, we might not have illumination to illuminate the center part of the reticle to pick it up a little bit easier, but the posts at 9, 12, and 3 are so big and thick that it helps draw your eye to the center so you could pick it up a little bit easier. With all my time behind these SWFA optics, I've never had a hard time finding the center of the reticle. Moving to the 50-yard line is going to show a weakness with this optic. Well, not necessarily a weakness with the optic, but a weakness with the magnification. 6x is really not a lot of magnification. And if you're going to buy this thinking that you're going to shoot super tight groups at 50 yards or beyond, is going to be a bit of a challenge for you. You are going to be on the short end of the stick. Here you can just make out those 22 LR holes on this target, and that's not really saying all that much. I myself do shoot better with less magnification, but I'd still be very happy around 10x at 50 yards to shoot any sort of quote-unquote precision groups. But you, again, might want the 6x for a multitude of reasons. Maybe you're using this on a lightweight hunting rig, or maybe you want to understand the basics of shooting with a mill-style reticle like this and a good target turret setup. So you really need to know what your purpose with this optic is before you go ahead and buy one. Regardless to what that purpose is, just know that you also are getting a very good forgiving eyebox. This is right up there with the best of the second focal plane 1-6 LPVOs that you can get your hands on. So it's a nice welcome sight to know that you're getting something that's going to be extremely versatile, very sharp, clear, crisp, and from my testing with these SWFA Classic lines, very robust. They take a beating, whether it's intended or not. That PRI Gator mount destroyed my 16x tube, and I hate it for it. But you know what? That scope keeps on ticking, and I absolutely love it for it. We saw how this SWFA fared against a similarly priced LPVO, but what about a more expensive one? This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Delta Stryker HD 1-6, which is an LPVO that I've praised ever since my first time getting my hands on one. I wish I can get my hands on one again, but it's not in the cards just yet. Here at 100 and 180-ish yards, depending if we're looking at the paper targets or the berm, there's no doubt about it. As good as the Stryker is, the SWFA is still better. Here at 200 yards, guess what? It's still much better. The depth of field, the sharpness, the clarity, the crispness to the image, the reticle, everything is just mwah, mwah, mwah. It's beautiful with the SWFA. At 300 yards, we have a very similar performance. It's just better. The Delta is excellent, and I love that optic, and I've recommended it to a lot of people, and they've been very happy with their product. But the SWFA just beats it. But this SWFA is a horse of a completely different color. And with that, let's get into my final thoughts and what I feel are the best purposes and uses for this SWFA 6X. Whether you want to put this on a lightweight hunting rig or a beginner 22 trainer, or if you want to run it in conjunction with an offset red dot as a 1-6 sort of hybrid, this thing can do it all, with the exception of have illumination. But if you're going to be planning on running this in conjunction with a offset red dot, let's say, do you really need illumination on this when you're going to have it on a red dot? Probably not. My ultimate goal with running this would be one of those three options. Running this with an offset red dot would be really cool to go from 1 to 6 really quickly and have the best of both worlds. A red dot, which is basically perfect for everything really, really close, and a beautiful 6X that if you needed to dial out for dope at extended distances, you could do it with ease and repeatability and precision, because as you saw earlier, the tracking on this thing is basically flawless. The next setup would be on a 22 LR trainer. Let's say you, your kid, or you just want to have a beater, you want to learn the basics of dialing for dope at distance, and you don't want to have too much magnification. You want to handicap yourself a little bit, but you want to get a feel for potentially shooting at larger targets farther away, but you're shooting with smaller targets a little bit closer with less magnification. This, again, is a perfect optic for it. Last but not least is going to be what Drew is actually going to use this for, which is a very small, simple hunting rig. Yeah, why not? Set it for whatever zero you want, and then you can dial it if you needed to, or find a good zero that'll work at two different distances, and then just worry about holding. Truthfully, you can use this optic for whatever you so choose, but just know that if you do purchase one of these, you're going to be getting a very good optic, just like the rest of the SWFA Classic lineup. But this is not going to be for everybody. If you think that you want illumination or maybe variable power, you're going to be looking somewhere else. This optic is for a very particular person. But if you are that particular person, such as Drew, just know that you're getting yourself a phenomenal optic. A huge thank you to Patreon provider Drew for sending this optic in for review. With this optic concludes the entirety of the SWFA Classic lineup for me to get my hands on, and I have to say, this one's almost my favorite. It's second place to the 10X only by a small margin. But again, it's not going to be for everybody. With that, thank you all very much for watching. And as always, see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe Star subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.